Did you hear the news? Avengers Endgame has the appearance of the first openly gay character in a Marvel cinematic movie. Now that's a win for gay rights. Homophobia is over. In this groundbreaking scene, okay, so like the movie just came out and I'm too lazy to find some footage of a guy just like, you know, with a camcorder in the movie theater. Plus my antivirus software expired, so like, take my word for it. But anyway, a one-off nameless extra mentions that he lost his husband in the events of the last movie. And the extra is played by one of the directors. Yay! Okay, so it should be obvious that this kind of representation isn't enough. A cameo that can be easily edited out is basically nothing. Hollywood has come to a sort of realization recently that the same movies about the same type of pretty straight white people just aren't cutting it anymore. There's a whole host of people out there desperate to see themselves reflected in media, and, more importantly, they'll give you your money to see it. The word pinkwashing was coined to refer to the ways that products would market themselves with pink ribbons for breast cancer awareness, even as they actively contained carcinogenic materials. Corporations realized that slapping on some pink and a pretty ribbon was a great way to get people to associate their product with breast cancer advocacy. This yogurt makes you an activist. The meaning of the term has since broadened to refer to the way that companies and governments will gesture towards LGBT acceptance as a marketing move, often in an attempt to gloss over more unsavory practices. Look at the rainbows! Buy our stuff! Hollywood has gladly embraced this practice. Stories that are about or gesture towards inclusion of marginalized people are all the rage, especially at the awards. And representation is important, of course. It's great that more and more people are, through media, exposed to other types of people in ways that might challenge their own biases. But the caveat is that these stories are usually not made for the people they depict, and, more direly, very rarely involve any of the represented people in any active creative roles. Mass media will gladly commodify the experiences of marginalized people, but is far more reluctant to actually give any power to the people it wants to profit off of. This is why you get able-bodied actors playing disabled characters, and getting praise for taking on such difficult, challenging roles, while disabled actors struggle to find jobs. It's also why Jared Leto can win an Oscar for playing a trans woman while transgender actors struggle to find roles, and not a single trans person has been nominated in an acting-related Academy Award. Films like Dallas Buyers Club, Boys Don't Cry, The Danish Girl, and the upcoming James Barry biopic seek to commodify the trans experience without any input from trans people. Casting cis men to play trans women and cis women to play trans men makes the story more palatable to a cis audience, who get to consume the idea of trans people without actually being confronted by their existence. Popular LGBT movies often depoliticize queer history so as not to alienate wider audiences. Or, in the case of a film about political events like Stonewall, real people who participated in history are sidelined for a more acceptable white boy. The aesthetics of activism are embraced, but the actual politics and lived experiences of real activists are discarded. In a similar vein, Marvel deciding to embrace girl power and feminism in the advertising of Captain Marvel serves to obfuscate the fact that it took them this long to make a female-led movie. It's lip service to feminism as a marketing tool. And that isn't even getting into the fact that the film is literal Air Force propaganda. Imperialism is girl power too! These gestures towards the ideas of activism are also where we get movies like Crash and The Green Book. A movie can gesture towards discussions of racism and bigotry, but only in such a way that it doesn't force anyone to confront the wider systems that create it. These movies talk about racism, but do so in such a way that white audiences don't have to think about their own biases or think about systemic injustice. Allusions to equality and representation are safer, and portrayals that actually challenge the status quo are risky. You might make people mad, or even worse, you might not make money. Representation here comes not out of altruism or a desire to do good, but out of an impulse to commodify the marginalized identity. A certain kind of person is assumed to be the viewer, and marginalized people are presented as the other, fit for consumption. Even in cases where a portrayal might otherwise be favorable, the desire to tell people stories without them ultimately taints the end product. While many praise The Shape of Water for its portrayal of a disabled woman, Sally Hawkins is a hearing, able-bodied actress, and many criticize the way ASL was used in the film, and how it was clear that Hawkins wasn't a native signer. For a lot of creators, it's easy to see representation as a sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. You get criticized for not having it, but for some reason, marginalized people aren't happy with the scraps you give them. There's just no winning. But the fact of the matter is that representation cannot stop at different kinds of people on screen. Diversity in media means nothing if it's still only straight white dudes who get to write, direct, and produce behind the scenes. And while a lot of creatives do have the best of intentions when they include marginalized people in their work, some things are not only their stories to tell, but stories that they should be making room for others to tell. So, to bring things back to the MCU and the Russos, it's nice to see a casual, normalized depiction of a gay character in a big-budget blockbuster. But in the context of Marvel and Disney's piss-poor representation up to this point, it's hard not to see this as anything other than Disney deciding that they wanted to get on the brownie points game. It's not equality or acceptance, but rather the calculated decision that LGBT people are profitable and consumable.